After a brutal night shift and a rooftop emergency, I came home hoping for rest, but instead found betrayal waiting for me. My wife cheated with my coworker while I fought to keep our home together. My name's Liam, I'm 32, and for as long as I can remember, I've believed hard work was the key to happiness. Raised by a single mom in a bustling neighborhood in Chicago, I learned early on to push myself relentlessly, always taking on extra shifts, odd jobs, anything to keep my head above water. So when my wife, Melanie, and I bought our first fixer-upper, it felt like the payoff for all those sleepless nights had finally arrived. But this isn't one of those dreamy renovation stories. No, reality struck hard and fast, and that cozy suburban dream quickly unraveled into chaos. 2 nights ago, my life shifted dramatically, beginning with a night shift that was so disastrous that it still sent chills down my spine. I'd been working overtime at the warehouse to cover unexpected repair costs at home. Our roof had been leaking, turning our supposedly peaceful home into a soggy nightmare. As fate would have it, a massive storm rolled through that night, relentlessly pounding the warehouse walls with howling winds and driving rain. Equipment failures were constant, and my supervisor, already notorious for his temper, chose that night to unleash every ounce of his frustration on us. After 10 grueling hours of unloading trucks and stacking crates under relentless criticism and fatigue, I was more zombie than man. My muscles ached, my head throbbed, and all I wanted was a hot shower and some sleep. Little did I know the night's drama was far from over. When I finally clocked out around 3:30 a.m., I stepped into the storm, instantly soaked by icy rain. The drive home was a white-knuckle experience, streets flooded, traffic lights blinking erratically, visibility near zero. Pulling into our driveway felt like completing a marathon. I trudged up to the front porch, longing for rest, only to notice a horrifying sight. The roof was now actively pouring water into our living room. Inside, Melanie was frantically rearranging furniture, buckets everywhere, towels soaked through. She looked exhausted, on the verge of tears. Seeing her distress jolted me into action despite my exhaustion. With no other option at this ungodly hour, I grabbed my tools and ascended into the attic, the wind howling through the gaps, the rain pelting my skin like tiny needles. Balancing precariously, flashlight clenched between my teeth, I patched the gaping hole the best I could, each gust of wind threatening to knock me clear off the ladder. After an agonizing hour, drenched and trembling with fatigue, I finally stumbled back down. Melanie was waiting, wrapped in a blanket, eyes wide with worry. "Liam, please rest," she pleaded softly. But rest felt like a luxury we couldn't afford. I nodded weakly, barely managing a comforting smile, and promised to join her soon. After a quick, freezing shower, I practically collapsed into bed, hoping to erase the last miserable 12 hours. But nothing could have prepared me for the shocking reality I'd face upon waking. The nightmare I thought was over had only just begun, and this next part would change everything I thought I knew about my life. I woke up with a pounding headache and aching muscles, the harsh memories of the night's ordeal still fresh in my mind. Sunlight streamed harshly through the blinds, emphasizing every throbbing nerve in my exhausted body. I glanced at the clock, 10:45 a.m. Just a few hours of rest, barely enough to feel human again. Dragging myself upright, I groaned at the stiffness settling deep into my bones. My body screamed in protest, a stark reminder of the stormy nightmare I'd survived only hours earlier. I was desperate for coffee, hoping the bitter warmth would help pull my mind from its foggy depths. As I shuffled towards the kitchen, a sense of unease lingered, prickling my skin. When I reached the kitchen, Melanie was nowhere to be found. Odd. Usually, she'd be bustling about, preparing breakfast, or at least sipping her morning tea. The room was eerily quiet, the stillness unsettling. I called out softly, "Mel." Silence answered. Concern gnawed at my gut, prompting me to quicken my pace, despite my body's protest. The living room was still a chaotic scene from the night before. Buckets, towels, and displaced furniture littered the area, a stark reminder of the ordeal. But something else felt off. Something subtle yet glaringly wrong. That's when I spotted it, a note lying conspicuously on the coffee table. My heart sank, apprehension gripping me tightly. Hastily scribbled, it read simply, "Had to leave, emergency. Call me when you're up." Sorry. My mind raced wildly with panic and confusion. What emergency could be urgent enough to pull her away without waking me? I snatched my phone from the table, noticing missed calls and messages flooding the screen. My heart pounded painfully as I dialed Melanie's number. She picked up almost immediately, voice trembling. "Liam, thank God. I'm so sorry, I didn't want to wake you, you looked so drained." "Mel, what happened? Where are you?" I pressed urgently. She hesitated, then let out a heavy sigh, her voice quivering. "It's my sister, Emma. She's been admitted to the hospital, appendicitis. It ruptured during the night. Liam, she's in surgery right now." Relief washed through me, chased immediately by a wave of guilt for feeling relieved about something so serious. Emma had always been close to Melanie, practically another sister to me. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to collect my scattered thoughts. "I'll be right there," I assured her firmly. Despite my exhaustion, I knew I needed to be there to support her through this sudden crisis. Are you sure you're up for it? Melanie asked gently, worry evident in her tone. Absolutely, I replied decisively. Give me half an hour, and I'll be by your side. After quickly showering, I dressed and gulped down a strong cup of coffee, adrenaline temporarily masking my fatigue. As I drove toward the hospital, my mind flashed through recent events. The relentless night shift, the near disaster with our roof, and now Emma's sudden emergency. It felt as though life was conspiring against us, testing every ounce of our resilience. Arriving at the hospital, I found Melanie pacing anxiously in the waiting room. Her eyes were red-rimmed from crying, her expression haunted by worry. She rushed into my arms, holding tightly as though she feared I'd vanish. Thank you for being here, she whispered tearfully. Always, I promised, squeezing her reassuringly. We sat together in tense silence, awaiting news from the operating room. Hours passed agonizingly slowly, each minute dragging painfully into the next. Finally, the doctor approached, exhaustion etched deeply on his face. Emma will be fine, he assured us gently. We caught it just in time. She's recovering now. Melanie collapsed into tears of relief, clutching my hand tightly. The emotional roller coaster had left us both drained, yet strangely united in our shared resilience. In that moment, I realized just how critical it was for us to lean on each other through life's relentless trials. But as we left the hospital, exhausted yet relieved, I couldn't shake a lingering unease. The trials we'd faced felt like mere preludes, minor tremors before an earthquake. Little did I know our real challenge was yet to come, and when it did, it would threaten everything we'd fought so hard to build. In the days following Emma's emergency, our lives regained a fragile rhythm. I returned to work, still bone-weary, but bolstered by the relief that Emma had pulled through. Melanie spent long hours at the hospital by her side, often returning home late and slipping into bed without a word. It was understandable, she was drained and so was I, but something in her eyes had shifted, distant, preoccupied, like her mind was miles away, even when she was right in front of me. I chalked it up to the trauma. We were all running on empty, trying to process a whirlwind of events without truly stopping to breathe. So when she started leaving her phone face down, silencing notifications, and taking longer to respond to simple questions, I tried to silence the warning bells in my head, until I couldn't anymore. It started with a text, an innocent enough buzz on her phone while she was in the shower. Normally, I wouldn't have looked, but this time something compelled me, a sixth sense, a cold dread that slithered into my gut. The message preview on her screen read, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." Every fiber of my body froze, my vision blurred, my breath caught, and my chest tightened with an ache more potent than exhaustion ever could deliver. I didn't open the message. I didn't storm into the bathroom. I just stood there, phone trembling in my hand, trying to process what I just read. When Melanie came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel and humming softly, I handed her the phone. I didn't say a word. Her eyes flicked from my face to the screen, and I saw it, the split second where the truth overtook her. Panic. She didn't even bother denying it. Instead, she collapsed onto the bed, hiding her face in her hands, sobbing before I could even speak. "Liam, I didn't mean for it to happen. I swear. It was a mistake. It's over. A mistake." The word bounced around the room like a grenade. I stood motionless, stunned not by her confession, but by the enormity of it all. We had fought through storm damage, financial pressure, hospital emergencies, and now this? Who? I asked, my voice cold, distant. She hesitated, then whispered, Ben, my coworker, the guy who covered my shift the night Emma went to the ER, the one who I trusted, even thanked for stepping in so I could be with my family. I laughed, not out of humor, out of pure, unfiltered disbelief. It felt like my world, already cracked from strain, had shattered completely. I left the room without another word. I spent that night in the car, parked in a grocery store lot, engine off, letting the silence suffocate me. The betrayal sat on my chest like a boulder, every breath a struggle. When dawn finally crept over the horizon, I still had no answers. Only one certainty: things could never go back to the way they were. I returned home, Not to talk, but to gather clarity. Melanie tried again, her voice trembling. It happened once. Just once. I was overwhelmed and I felt invisible. I was wrong. I know that now. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But all I could do was stare at the woman I'd fought so hard to support, to protect, to hold together through the mess of life, and realize I didn't recognize her anymore. I need space, I said flatly. And you need to leave. She didn't fight. She packed a bag in silence. There were no goodbye hugs, no long explanations, just the quiet closing of a door as she disappeared into the morning. In the aftermath, I sat alone in the ruins of our once shared life. The roof still leaked, Emma was still recovering, and now my marriage had imploded on top of it all. But there was a strange peace in the wreckage, because at least now I knew the truth. And with truth comes the opportunity to rebuild, not what was, but what could still be. Update. It's been just over a month since Melanie walked out of our home, and with her, the illusion of stability I'd fought so hard to protect. In that time, my world has been both quieter and louder than ever before. No footsteps padding through the hallway, no clatter of dishes in the kitchen, but my mind hasn't stopped roaring. I thought the silence would be healing, that solitude would bring clarity. But clarity has a cruel edge to it. It doesn't just show you the path forward, it forces you to stare directly at the wreckage behind you. The first week, I barely slept. I returned to work like a ghost, going through the motions, pretending not to notice the hushed conversations or sideways glances. Word had gotten out. About Ben. About Melanie. About the man who got stabbed in the back twice, once by his wife, once by a so-called friend. Ben, to his cowardly credit, had requested a transfer after Melanie left. He didn't face me, didn't apologize, just vanished into a different shift like the spineless traitor he was. I can't say I wanted an apology. I didn't. What could he possibly say that wouldn't feel like rubbing salt into a wound? But Melanie, she called once, left a voicemail I've listened to maybe a dozen times, never once responding. Liam, I know I hurt you. I was weak. I was angry at everything and took it out on the one person who never deserved it. I'm not asking for anything. Just, I hope you find peace. I hope one day you can forgive me. Forgiveness. That word doesn't sit easily on my tongue. I didn't answer her call. I didn't block her either. I just let it sit, like a bruise that doesn't fade but doesn't hurt the way it used to. It just exists now, part of the landscape. I started going to the gym. Nothing fancy. Just lifting, running, sweating out the emotional poison. The physical pain makes more sense than the emotional one. Muscles heal. Betrayal lingers. Emma recovered well, thank God. She doesn't know the full story. Only that Melanie moved out and that we're working through things. Maybe one day I'll tell her more. Or maybe I won't. Some stories feel too raw to retell. As for the house, it's held up. I finally hired a contractor to finish the repairs I couldn't do on my own. The leak is gone. The roof is sealed. The chaos above no longer matches the chaos within. And yet, something strange happened 2 nights ago. I was sorting through a box of old things, mostly junk, when I came across a photo. Melanie and I, arms around each other at the beach, both of us laughing. That day, the sun had been relentless, the ocean cold, our skin sticky with salt and sunscreen. We were happy, genuinely happy. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared. And then I put the photo back in the box and closed it. Because that moment was real, but it's not my present. It's not my future. Grief doesn't just show up for the dead. It arrives for dreams, for trust, for the life you imagined and never got to live. And I've been grieving all of it. Slowly, quietly, one sleepless night at a time. But here's the thing about grief. It's not the end of the road. It's just the bend before a new path. The turning point didn't come with some grand gesture. No apology scrawled on a napkin or a moment of karmic justice that made everything make sense. Instead, it arrived one evening in the simplest way. A quiet, ordinary breath. I was sitting on the porch, the late spring breeze brushing over my arms as the sun dipped below the roof I'd worked so hard to keep over my head. There was something strange in the stillness. A soft reminder that life, however damaged, had not completely given up on me. It was the first time I could breathe without feeling like I was stealing air. In the weeks after Melanie's departure, I forced myself to start living again, not surviving, not just keeping busy to numb the ache, but really living. I got back into old hobbies. Things I'd shelved during our marriage because there was always something more important to handle. Painting, trail running, cooking meals that didn't come from a microwave. And it was during one of those evenings cooking dinner in silence, an old jazz record spinning in the background, that I realized how much space there was in the quiet. It didn't suffocate me anymore. It held me, gave me room to think, to feel, to rebuild. That's when I met Grace. Not through dating apps, not at a bar, but at the community center's Saturday market. I was buying fresh herbs for a pasta dish I'd wanted to try, and she struck up a conversation about the basil looking tired. I laughed. She smiled. And just like that, something shifted. Grace was different. Not because she was dazzling or mysterious, but because she didn't expect anything from me. She listened more than she spoke. She asked questions that weren't loaded with assumptions. We talked about music, food, weird documentaries. Not once did she ask about Melanie or what went wrong. We saw each other a few more times. Casual. Comfortable. It wasn't a romance, not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was connection. The healthy kind. The kind that didn't carry a weight. Meanwhile, I continued patching up the house and my life. Mia dropped by more often, bringing me leftover baked goods and thinly veiled check-ins disguised as casual visits. Emma was back on her feet, her recovery going smoothly, her humor sharp as ever. She still didn't know the full extent of what had gone down with her sister, and that was fine. That was mine to carry. I kept going back to that voicemail from Melanie. I hadn't deleted it. I never replayed it again either. But knowing it was there made me feel finished. Not angry. Not bitter. Just finished. Like the final page of a chapter I'd reread too many times. Then came a letter. An actual letter. Handwritten. From Melanie. It arrived on a Thursday. No return address, just my name in her neat handwriting. I stood in the kitchen, unopened envelope in hand, staring at it like it might explode. Eventually, I opened it. Read it once. Then again. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't a begging monologue. It was honest. A simple accounting of where her head had been. The fear. The resentment. The way she'd let it all ferment into something unrecognizable. She didn't ask to come back. Didn't even ask for forgiveness. She just wanted me to know she understood the damage she caused and that she was seeking help. Therapy. Time alone. She said she hoped I would heal and that she'd never stop regretting how she'd stolen peace from a man who had done nothing but offer it. I folded the letter and put it in the drawer. Not out of sentiment, but out of finality. She said her piece. And I had mine. In the quiet that followed, I lit a candle, poured myself a drink, and sat in that stillness once more. There's a type of strength nobody talks about, the kind you earn in silence without applause. The kind that doesn't show up in motivational quotes or perfectly lit social media posts. It's the strength that shows itself when you're standing in the grocery store, staring at a can of soup you used to buy for 2 people and realizing you only need one now. Update. It's been 3 months since Melanie left and the dust has settled in the house, if not fully in my heart. I wish I could say that every day gets easier, but that's not entirely true. Some days are peaceful, almost serene. Others are jagged reminders of what was lost. But what's different now is how I move through those days, deliberately without flinching, even when it hurts. I've kept my world small by choice. Work, gym, a few good friends. I've learned the value of boundaries, something I didn't even realize I was missing in my marriage. I say no more often. I ask for space without guilt. I recognize when someone's words don't match their actions. These are the skills no one teaches you until life throws you into the fire. Grace and I still talk. Sometimes over coffee, sometimes while walking our dogs at the park. Still nothing romantic, but there's a rhythm to our conversations that's become part of my healing. She asks about my favorite books, my travel dreams, the music I used to love. She doesn't pry about Melanie, doesn't press. Just listens like a mirror that reflects only what I'm ready to see. Sheila, my mom, stopped bringing up reconciliation weeks ago. At first, she couldn't understand why I wouldn't even consider it. People make mistakes, she'd say, as if betrayal could be chalked up to a missed appointment or a forgotten anniversary. But eventually she came around. Not because she agreed, but because she saw I was firm in my peace. Mia remains my quiet anchor. She checks in without hovering, brings by random leftovers she knows I didn't cook, and sometimes stays to binge crime documentaries. It's in those simple evenings, TV flickering, popcorn in hand, that I realize how love doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it's just someone showing up when they don't have to. I finally boxed up the last remnants of Melanie's life here. Her old sweaters, her framed photos, even the half-used bottle of shampoo in the guest bathroom she never bothered to finish. I thought it would feel like a funeral. Instead, it felt like closing the door to a room I no longer needed to visit. And you know what? I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I didn't even hesitate, because I realized letting go doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be real. I've started journaling. Not every day, not obsessively. Just when I need to dump the noise in my head onto paper and make room for the quiet. It's not poetry, but it's mine. And in those pages, I've started to see patterns. Wounds becoming scars, fears turning into lessons. I wrote this one line that stuck with me. You don't rebuild your life by waiting for someone to hand you bricks. You gather the rubble and start stacking. And that's what I've been doing. Brick by brick. Not rushing. Not perfect. But honest. The world hasn't magically made sense. Bills still pile up. The roof still groans when it rains. But now, when I hear those creaks and groans, I don't panic. I listen. I smile. Because it's my roof. My storm to weather. And this time I know I'll be okay. Update. A few days ago, I sat in the same spot on my porch where I'd once clutched a coffee cup like it was life support, staring into the pre-dawn gloom after Melanie left. This time, though, it was different. The sun was setting instead of rising, painting the sky in warm gold and tangerine. And I wasn't numb. I was whole. Not healed in some perfectly wrapped-up movie ending kind of way, but steady, present, and no longer breaking. It's funny how growth sneaks up on you. One day you're just surviving, and the next you realize you've gone a full week without waking up with that crushing weight in your chest. That the silence in your house isn't screaming anymore. It's humming. Grace dropped by with her dog. We didn't plan it. She just showed up with a bottle of wine and 2 takeout boxes from our favorite hole-in-the-wall Thai place. We sat on the porch, letting her dog nap at our feet while we talked about nothing important. Grocery store mishaps, terrible movie reboots, a podcast she thought I'd like. There was no tension, no guessing, just ease. She looked over at me at one point and said, "You seem lighter, happier." And without thinking, I smiled and told her, "Yeah, I think I am." That night wasn't a declaration of anything. We didn't kiss. We didn't hold hands. But it was the kind of moment that makes you believe that maybe, just maybe, life doesn't end when it falls apart. It shifts, and sometimes that shift becomes the foundation for something better. I'm not naive. I know there will be more storms, literal and emotional. The roof might need patching again. Someone I love might hurt me. I might stumble and fall flat on my face. But now, I trust myself to get back up. Melanie's chapter in my life didn't define me. It refined me. I don't hate her. I don't wish her misery. I hope she found whatever clarity she was searching for, and I hope she's using it to do better. But this story is mine now. So to anyone out there who's trudging through betrayal, heartbreak, or just the quiet ache of a life not going how you planned, it gets better. Maybe not right away. Maybe not in the way you expect. But the moment you choose yourself, the moment you say, "I deserve peace," everything starts to shift. That's what I've learned. That strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers, "Try again tomorrow." And sometimes that whisper is enough to build a whole new life around. So, tell me, have you ever faced a moment that forced you to rebuild from the ground up? What did that first brick look like for you? Drop your story in the comments. Someone out there might need it more than you know. Hope you enjoyed this story as much as I do. Help this small channel grow by hitting that like button, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. Every bit of support means the world. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.